Hi there, and welcome to the Skylight Books Author Reading Series. You can find out about this and all of our author events at www.skylightbooks.com. At our website, you can also browse our inventory as well as order books online. And don't be afraid to follow us on Twitter or even be our friend at facebook.com. If you'd like to talk to a real person, we can be reached at 323-660-1175. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Daniel Clowes is the acclaimed cartoonist behind Ghost World, Art School Confidential, and the Eightball comic series, and many other stories and books as well. He was nominated for an Academy Award for his screenplay adaptation of Ghost World, and he has won several Harvey and Eisner Awards for his comics. And Dana Gould, who is here moderating this discussion, is a comedian and comedy writer who wrote and performed on The Ben Stiller Show, wrote for The Simpsons for 6 years, and appeared on Seinfeld, The Aristocrats, and other film and TV roles. He was a regular contributor to the Adam Carolla radio show, and his stand-up special, Let Me Put My Thoughts in You, is out on DVD now. Without further ado, here is Daniel Clowes and Dana Gould.
Thank you. Hi, Dan.
Hello, comics fans.
This is the biggest crowd I've seen here since the James Elroy appearance, but the women look much less threatened, which is nice.
That is nice.
And we're here ostensibly to talk about your new book, Wilson.
Available at the front counter.
Available at the front counter. Is your mic on?
Is it? No.
No. How about now? There you go.
I guess you're a pro
There
at
you
this,
go.
Dana. Okay.
Which one was the stand-up?
Yeah, right.
We were talking on the telephone. Before we talk about the book, how many people here have already read it? How many people here are going to be really bummed out if we talk about it and you learn things you might discover within the book? Sorry.
Just him.
But I won't get too specific, except we'll talk extensively about the murder.
The ending.
Yeah. The ending. But we were talking about the Wilson's personality is he's really he's a lot like a stand-up comedian in the way they really are in life, which is
right.
Solitary,
Angry,
misanthropic,
abrasive,
but it's the people. It's just the perfect combination of arrogance and self-loathing. That's really what makes us. I guess I would have to include myself in that. I guess that's what makes them so wonderful.
Right. Well, as you said, Wilson is like 90% of your Christmas card list.
Yes, exactly. I know this. I not only know this guy, I spend most of my time hanging out with one variant of him.
I find I'm quite shocked by the reviews of people saying, nobody could be like this. I guess I need a better sort of friend.
Exactly. You don't travel in my circle.
Right.
We want to get into the audiovisual portion of the show. Yeah. You have some of your old burlesque loops that you brought, which I greatly appreciate.
My early work.
But the book also has a form that you've not done before. You've sort of set yourself up a challenge.
That's right. I've raised a hurdle for myself.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that? I'm going to go read that book entitled Rape. Would you hand me that book right above my head? Oh, yeah, right there. That giant. No, the one to the right. Here's one. Guys, if you're a single fella and you got a gal over, this is not the deal closer you want just sitting on the bookshelf. You looking at my books? Where are you going?
That guy's going to be doing a signing on Thursday. What would the crowd be Roman, like for that?
It's by Oh, and it's by a chick. Uh-oh. Somebody's angry. Okay. I kid.
I think you have to buy that.
I kid the rape victims. I kid. Yeah. So anyway, Wilson has a specific sort of motif.
Yes, it's made up of 77 little one-page sort of gag strips. Like, the original impetus for this came from reading like old Peanuts collections, Charles Schulz, where if you read them in sequence, it's as though they have a narrative. It's like there's like the Christmas strips, then the New Year's strips, then all of a sudden it's Valentine's Day, and then they're playing baseball. And it's sort of, it has like this semblance of real life passing, and it almost feels like there's this grand narrative that's actually not. He does not impose on it. It just it has that sort of natural feel. And I thought that would be really cool if you sort of took that notion and actually imposed a real narrative onto it.
Yeah, and what I also liked about it a lot was that you don't realize you're doing that until about until a little ways in.
Yeah,
it kind of surprises.
I wanted it to just feel like, oh, it's just a bunch of silly gags with this obnoxious guy, and then all of a sudden it coalesces into a story. And then when you get to the end, you kind of look back at the first few, and I see how that related.
Yeah, it's great. I because you then here's a question I wanted to ask, and then maybe we'll get into the AV thing. But
right, the AV.
I don't know what to call it.
Right.
The PowerPoint, is that what it is?
I guess.
You're here to prove that they have weapons of mass destruction.
That's
in Iraq.
right. I have some dossiers with me.
But I love the that it does jump around, and because you've also written screenplays, I often wonder do you think of this? Do you now do you think of movies as strips? Do you think of strips as movies? Because it's. I look at this as like, I could see this movie, and I wish they would make the movie in the way you wrote it.
Right, yeah.
And
77 little blackout sketches.
Yeah, and
that would be a very commercial film, I'm sure.
Well,
There's somebody out there who wants to make that film right now.
Yeah, I've on more than one occasion been asked after pitching a movie, what's the target audience of this movie? And
they're old men.
Yeah, as Andy Kindler said, it's men my age who are me. But as I said, who doesn't want an opera about Renfield?
Right.
Come on. I can't believe that Universal Studios is saying no to my Peter Cushing biopic. Good day, sir. That's great. And when did you did you decide before you even started it that that's what you wanted to do, or how far in advance do you have this plotted out before you sit down to
the way this story was born, I actually my dad was like dying of lung cancer in the hospital, which is always the wellspring for mirth.
a lot of great humor there.
So I was like just sitting in the hospital for days, day after day, and I just read this Charles Schulz biography, and I was like really connecting my dad to Charles Schulz. They were like the same age, and sort of these gray-haired, crew-cut Midwestern squares.
Right.
And so this book was really hitting me on a deep level, and there's a part in the book where Schulz says something like, the difference between an amateur and a professional is that a professional can sit down and in 15 minutes have a workable cartoon for the next day's paper. And I thought, like, Jesus Christ, I can't do that. 15 minutes. Who could do that? And I thought,
that's actually the difference between an autistic person and a person.
Right. And so I that was my challenge, but I just had a little sketchbook in the hospital, and I thought, I'm going to draw a couple 15-minute strips and see how it goes.
Uh-huh.
And this guy kind of just emerged from that. It was just like this, I needed like a funny character that had no thought, no forethought at all. Just this id creature emerging onto the page.
That's really what it is.
And then the next thing I knew, I just couldn't stop. Like I was laughing at my own stupid cartoons that I'm drawing with my little, stick figure.
And people walking by the room think you're laughing at your sick father.
Yeah, the nurses like, dear God, he's lost his mind. And so I drew literally hundreds of strips with this guy, and just like I knew the character, but none of it. There was no story at all. I didn't even think, I'll do a story. Mm-hmm. But once I knew the guy, then I sort of like, what's his story? And I realized his father would die, and he's totally alone in the world. And I thought that's his the thing that gets him going, the engine that begins the story.
Yeah, it is in that way. It is, and I think it's fair to say that's a theme that runs through a lot of your work.
Perhaps.
But it's it's heartbreaking, as it goes, hilariously so.
If you care about a guy like this, it is.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
Or if you think that maybe you're him on some level. Or if maybe on some level you think that it's you. That's hilarious. So let's backtrack. You have a PowerPoint presentation.
Well, sort of.
General Powell. We're going to take you back to the golden days of burlesque.
Days.
And
Do 5 minutes of your.
oh Christ! Can I do 4? I was. But here's what a really funny person would say in that situation, as opposed to myself. As many people, I'm sure people here have been to Lucha Vavoom or have seen Lucha Vavoom, which is
I haven't.
It's the Mexican wrestling burlesque review that.
Oh yes, of Natch.
Yeah, Natch. But we do it at the Mayan Theater 3 times a year, and it's great. It's real masked Mexican wrestlers, and then every other match they have a burlesque routine, like pasties and G-string, and it's a ton of fun. And one night we were there, and a folding chair fight broke out, as is wont to happen. And I said to Gary Shandling, who was there near the front, I said, I'm going to bring you on now to do about 10. Without flinching, he went, would you mind? See, that's what a really funny person would say.
Right.
And look at that. It took just enough time to tell that story, and now
Perfect.
we're heated up.
You're a pro.
Look at that. Semblance
This
of
is
professionalism.
one of my, conceptual pieces. This
Do you
is
need
like
to
my
change?
new stuff. Yeah, can you do that? Do you know how to do it?
What do I
think if you
what do I
press
do?
this, maybe.
This is
Why not?
so. This is a home computer. This is like a computer you could have in your home.
It's a hand crank.
Well, that did nothing.
Let's see. Do we have any nerds in the audience?
I don't think so. Oh, hang on. Wait. Double click to. What would happen if I double
don't
click
do.
that?
No.
Okay.
Do not.
Slideshow.
From arrow to hand. Where do I hit slideshow? Now be my mother. Where? The top? What? The top? View show? Would that do it? I don't know, honey. What if there's a fire? Guess who doesn't sleep in my bedroom now? Your father. This is the lamest slideshow ever. No.
Spacebar. Yeah.
Oh!
Wait, I didn't do that though.
Could you tell I did that? So, did Jamie throw my voice to give myself my
Where's
own? So we were talking about this on the other day. Tell us about what this is.
Well, I mean, first of all, I put together this slideshow originally because my publicist wanted me to go out and do this little dog and pony show where I would promote my book, and so I put together all these slides, and then I was like, I do not want to go up and go hey everybody, here's my great career. Let's have a trip into my egotism. So the idea was to have people come and ask questions related to these slides.
Right.
So. But as it's turned out, every single night I just wind up going through them by myself, as I was going to do anyway. So anyway, so my little impetus for putting this story in, this was a story by a science fiction comic artist named Wally Wood, who is, yes, and please no questions about Wally Wood after this. That's I've answered everything I ever want to answer about Wally Wood. But he was sort of like the quintessential 50s sci-fi artist. And this was a story in the last issue of Weird Science magazine in 1953 or so, where it was like a gift to him, where in every panel it's like this sci-fi wet dream of dinosaurs and spaceships and dinosaurs on spaceships and beautiful girls in spaceships fighting dinosaurs. It literally goes on for 7 pages of just.
It is amazing how in a lot of pulp sci it's all about it's really all about rape. It's all about space fucking.
It is basically, but anyway, so it goes through 7 pages of just sci-fi drawings, and then we get to this. This is the last panel, and you find out the story is actually Wally Wood drawing the story. It's like a meta thing, and And this had like a huge impact on me as a kid. I remember seeing this, and this was like the first time I ever saw sort of like my dream of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like the greasy-haired, guy like smoking and sitting in a dark. It looks like he's just in darkness in the middle of the night, with like his beer mug in the. I mean, he was like a hopeless alcoholic, and to put his beer mug is really dismal, and like drawing on a gigantic. I didn't know you drew on such a big piece of paper till then. I mean, it was everything I wanted to be in that panel. And so, like, that was the minute I was like, I'm gonna be this guy.
Yeah. That hairstyle, by the way, is called a full McGarrett.
Yeah, that is pretty McGarrett-esque.
That's a complete Jack
Anyway,
Lord.
so cut to.
So you have this fantasy of how amazing this guy is.
Yeah.
I wonder what his life looked like look like in real life.
Imagine, hey, this is poor Wally in reality. Maybe like 10 years after that panel was drawn, where he's like, sitting on a mattress with a pegboard on the wall. Like he's obviously like typing a letter, like, dear editor, where's that $40 you owe me for ink? And we don't even want to know what this is all about. And that, like the phone, it's just like, I'm going to move it closer. Maybe it'll ring now, And it just, but the bottom line is I still want to be that guy, and I want to be sitting on that couch. Like, to me, that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So
again, tips for the men who are interested in the ladies. I wouldn't have tools hanging over the bed near a poster that says Dynamo.
Saw-like. Yeah.
So easy to reach. Nothing good's happening.
Well, there's something to do with Snow White right there.
Nothing there. It says deal closer.
Right. No.
Oh.
Here we are. So this is me as an innocent lad. This is like right around the time I started drawing comics, and I don't know, it just amuses me to see how innocent I was. I was actually going to do like a hideous photoshopped version of that and go like, here I am now.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So here's some early.
Do you still
work.
have that wig?
I do. Actually. Yeah. I still have that shirt. This is one of my early pieces, a caricature of Gerald Ford. When your child is drawing Gerald Ford, that it's time for therapy. So
I like how his head is crushing his body.
Yeah. It was a comment on Ford's. I can't even make it. But at this time, I wanted to be like, Mort Drucker drawing for Mad Magazine, like the caricature guy. And so, I was completely fixated on Mad Magazine. Here's some actually earlier stuff. This is one of my timeless classics that never thought I would see 6 feet tall. It's on a tiny piece of typing paper. This is I was probably 11 when I did this. And I did hundreds of these, just, stupid parodies of, I do like, instead of the Night Gallery, it would be the Fright Gallery or something. Nobody even knows what the Night Gallery is.
Oh, no, sure they do.
You do.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, I wanted to work for Mad, and instead, here's my first published work in Cracked. Wah, wah. So, the reason, the way I got to work...
But it wasn't crazy.
It wasn't sick. It wasn't crazy. The way I got to work for Cracked was my roommate at the time answered a want ad in the pay. It was like just in the paper, like in the New York Post or something. It was like wanted assistant at Cracked magazine, and that sounds like a good job. And he went and got the job, and within 10 days he was the editor-in-chief of Cracked. That's literally true. It's like went from literally working at like a record store answering phones to making $60,000 a year.
That's fantastic.
It was so cool.
It's kind of in Apocalypse Now. Who's in charge here? Ain't you? and it looks like somebody's making his first appearance in the last panel.
Yeah, there we are.
That looks like our old friend.
Oh, no.
That looked like Lloyd Llewellyn in the corner there.
Everybody did back then. I just like this cover because I can't believe I was in this magazine. That makes me feel so old. Like this was like the current movie, Rocky 2. Like
I think that's Rocky 4.
Oh, it's 4. Well, okay, sorry. But I mean, Dolph Lundgren was still he was a viable star at this point. Mm-hmm. Back to the Future was in the theaters. I don't know. That cracked me up that I was in there.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Have you seen the last Rambo?
I never did.
You should really see it.
Okay.
It's an orgasm of carnage.
Okay.
There he is.
So now, I don't want to talk about every comic I did, but this is the first thing I ever did on my own.
Oh.
And this is my dark period.
Something. Yeah.
Uh-oh, we've lost it.
Power.
Wah, wah.
It's funny. I was at the store today, and I saw sardines packed in oil, and they turned that around really quick down in the Gulf. They already got the stuff in the stores. Huh? If you squint really hard at the Sex and the City 2 billboard, it looks like the Rolling Stones are doing a perfume ad.
So I'll step outside for a smoke.
Here's my question. When you're outside of Grauman's Chinese Theater and you see the superheroes that pose for pictures,
yeah.
Is it a wet homeless guy as Spider-Man or a regular guy as wet homeless Spider-Man? I can never, ladies and gentlemen, we're never going to see the pictures of our trip to Casper, Wyoming.
That's right. I have lots of photos of my son.
Do we know what the deal is, or?
I've never done this before.
Okay.
It's a brand new problem.
I think possibly it's too awesome.
It exploded from awesomeness.
Okay, great. Well, let's can unplug it and plug it back in.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay, and so you
Weird
were.
that we have nerds in the audience.
Yeah, I know. Isn't the inventor of this thing here? Jesus H. But Lloyd Llewellyn was for Fantagraphics. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
What was the jump from Cracked to Fantagraphics?
When I was working for Cracked, I had a lot of spare time, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I thought, what should I? There we go.
Oh, cool.
I thought, what should I do? And I thought, I should draw an undergroundish kind of comic. Here, this was to show sort of the context.
You also are sporting a full McGarrett there. You really did.
I call that the full Gumby, but
yeah. But you've got the forelock. You've got the the Jack Lord forelock.
I was trying to find something that would show the context of the comic world in 1986, and I was going to put together a show of different covers of comics and stuff, and then I found this photo, and I thought, okay, enough said.
Yeah. But it is that absolutely is a bunch of comedians hanging out after a show.
It truly to me, I have that Jack Nicholson in The Shining quality. I wasn't in this photo originally. I was never there.
And the Clockwork Orange poster is almost stabbing you in the head if you look really closely.
I didn't even notice that. That's chilling.
And that's kind of there was the guy in the front next to the African American woman. That hair, I kind of had that hair, and my wife says It was a mullet, but it wasn't really.
No, it's even worse, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bad party in the back and no business in the front.
Right, no business being done at all. So
now here you go.
Here we go. So Lloyd Llewellyn.
I have this. I have this that you would hold.
There you go. Is it mint? To finish my little Lloyd Llewellyn story, I finished one story with this character that I made up in literally 5 seconds. I was like, let's see, let's have a good character. Okay, a guy with a bunch of L's in his name. Fine, that's it. That's his personality. Case closed. So I did a 10-page story, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? Nobody's going to publish this. And I saw there's this company called Fantagraphics that did the Comics Journal, and I thought, well, if I send it to them, they'll send me some feedback. I literally thought begging
circle, for notes.
Yeah, literally. They would circle, the misspelled word, or I don't know what they would do. And so I thought, well, they'll give me some feedback, and then years down the road, I'll hone my skills, and then I'll have my own comic. And so then 3 days later, I get a call we'd like to give you your own comic. I was like, but I'm not ready. Yeah, exactly. Right, I just got the janitor job at Crack. And so, but of course, I was not really ready to do this comic, and I wasn't really that into drawing this character that was sort of imposed on me because that was who I submitted, and it was ultimately canceled. And I was ready to give up comics, and I thought, well, I got to do like one that's like the one I really wanted to do, and that's what this was. And the idea was to do like 3 issues and then slink out before they realized how much money I lost for them.
Right. And you started like a Velvet Glove cast iron in the first. Did you know where you clearly? I can't imagine thinking you were only going to do 3 issues. You didn't have the breadth and scope of the entire story.
I actually thought it was going to be 3 issues long. I thought, I can do like a 3-issue story.
And what year
but
is
I didn't
that?
even know the second chapter when I did the first one.
Like 88?
89 was when
89?
it was printed.
Yeah.
So I probably did it in 88.
Right, because I remember when it came out, I thought it was Twin Peaksy.
But Twin Peaks is actually after Velvet Glove by about a year. Nobody remembers that.
No, but 8-Ball, when it started to roll.
Yeah.
Reminded me.
Yeah, no, everybody was, oh, you saw Twin Peaks. And I was like, no, I'm afraid not.
Well, I think you're a homo. That would be, for the... Oh, no. That's what happens when you say the H word. It would be great if maybe for a brief moment I'll interview you like Jack Webb.
Right, okay.
This your comic?
Yes.
I'm proud of that. Yeah, sick of that story? So this your new book?
Yes.
Well, pardon me while I jump up and click my heels. That's what he said once. Is this your apartment? Yeah, man. Well, pardon me while I jump up and click my heels. There was another great end of a Dragnet once where Gary Crosby was playing a painter.
I remember that. Oh, where he asked to see a picture of, do you have a picture of your girlfriend? He goes, yeah, man, I got a picture. And it's like an abstract painting, and he and Harry look at each other like,
and then he said, I swear he said this, or I'm remembering it incorrectly. He goes, I don't need to clean up, man. I'm an artist. I'm like Picasso. And then at the end of the episode, when he's the square John.
Right.
And he goes, Picasso, my apartment's kind of neat now. I don't feel like Picasso anymore. I'll bet I know somebody who would appreciate that. Mrs. Picasso. Hi, Mrs. P. Oh, and there you go.
all right, so here we are, yeah.
Now, come on, let's just
got
go that from
nothing to
Twin
say.
Peaks. You stole that from
Man.
No, I'm kidding.
All right.
Yeah, it was so. Yeah, but I love. Now, there's an interesting thing with the expressions on the faces. Is this a trade secret that I'm going to ask you about? You have a photo reference that you use for some of your stuff that I've seen. Do you know what it is? Is that the?
What is it?
Well,
What
let
are
me
you
ask you
referring to?
off mic.
Oh, yeah. But I don't really use those for reference.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just because I thought when we were at a
Shut up.
We were at a key party.
Get a hint?
We were at the world's worst key party. It was just before Colonel Sanders died. Who wants to, oh man, who was at the key party? Dan Clowes, Colonel Sanders, and me. It fucking sucked. No, but you had this collection of old mugshots that you bought. And it really is, and I just assumed, because if you look at the fourth panel there, it's just people at the worst moment of their life.
Yeah.
And it's just like this, and they just have that look in their eye. They're like, fuck. There's no more downhill.
Right.
It's just
shoplifting at Gimbals again. Yeah.
So clever.
So while Velvet Glove I was trying to capture my inner life in a narrative. I was trying to just use my dreams and weird, just anything that felt uncomfortable. That I don't want anybody to know this about me. I'm going to put that in. That was how I did it, and that's why it was sort of fun to do and fun to read, I think. But that was my inner life, and this was my outer life. This was the world I was all of a sudden plopped into. The comics world, as you saw in in the late 1980s, which was not hospitable to my little my little coffee clatch of comic creators. It was.
Right. And you were in Chicago then, so.
Yeah, yeah. And, you'd go into any comic store and you'd go like, do you carry 8-Ball? And they're like, in the adults only box, in the, behind the curtain, in the men's room, under the dead guy. It's just, it's in there with the elf porn and, just all the stuff.
I never understood that. I really don't. And the like pornographic drawings. It's like, if you want to look at that, there's a better thing available.
There are photographs, yes.
There's
I've always actually admired that. I thought like that shows like a certain artistic sensibility that I prefer these comic strips to the.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just not.
Yeah.
Carol Hernandez, Gilbert Hernandez's wife.
Yes.
Of course. Told me a really funny story about like they would be because they would be like talking, we got to go to your mother's, and then she'd look and he'd just be like drawing a giant cock. Yeah, I know, and they're gonna take out that same old ball of tied up Christmas decorations, and we should just stop off and get a new set of string lights. I don't know why these big veins on this. It's really bizarre, a crazy. Way to make a living.
Are we?
I never. There was a.
Blind.
I don't know if it's still there, but at Golden Apple, it used to be the adult section had those Western doors.
Right.
So when you walk, you're like, shame.
Right.
It's one of I rarely quote my own jokes, but this is actually a Simpsons joke that I wrote that I'm actually somewhat proud of. When Ralph Wiggum went into the porno section of the comic book store, it was just quiet, and then you just hear him go, "Everybody's hugging." Most of the great Ralph Wiggum lines were written by
you.
By George Meyer.
By George.
Your
Yeah.
offense by George.
So these are, I don't really have anything to say about. They're just like the funny little strips I did in my early comics. I don't have any like backstage dirt on the insignificant shrimp.
No, but you do have a great. This is you have one of the things that I caught my eye originally was you have a great sort of mid-century aesthetic in your drawing that I like.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's you stole that from Mad Men, I think, back in
I did.
90.
I did.
Yeah.
This was a
There
girl.
you go.
That was a girl my brother went to high school with that I was totally in love with. Who's probably now 60 years old. Still hot.
Still hot. Yeah, I get that. And that is the. This is I think in the. Well, there's an early relative of Wilson is, and I think it's in. I'm not sure if it's not in I Hate You Deeply. There was the obese guy in the No Fat Chicks T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Complained about fat chicks on TV. He's like a cousin of Wilson's, I would think.
Yeah, that was actually Gilbert Hernandez told me that one of my former publishers actually was like a fat guy and had a No Fat Chicks T-shirt. So this is what happens to Lloyd Llewellyn.
The fat is unnecessary in that guy's T-shirt.
True. So I got, here's my franchise character, and I just turned him into like a jerk who lists all the things that I hate.
Why don't you sell that font as like Clowes?
Yeah, because then it would be used for, horrible comics.
Right.
This was me in high school.
Ectomorph.
This story weirdly there's like a lot of super skinny guys will come up to me at a signing and go like, I used to wear 2 pairs of pants too. This is almost an early version of Wilson, like a scarier version. I always like this cover.
Yeah, and My Suicide is one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
I was always concerned in writing suicide notes. I was never sure of the spelling. And
you don't want people going, what an idiot.
Dana committed suicide. What should we do? Don't panic. Call the Paleys. There's our school confidential. Now there's a story here.
Yeah, this was, I did
You stole this from that movie, Art School.
I did. I did this. I actually did this story like the day my student loan came due. Up till then, I wasn't all that bitter about it, and then I was like, I have to pay $8,000 for that. I'm not working. Yeah, it was $8,000 for 4 years of art school back then, and I was like, may as well have been $8 million. And I think I paid like $20 a month for 10 years or so. And but I thought like, I'll just do this story till like.
Want to pop that?
What
are we going to do again?
Yeah, I got it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Thanks, Bill Gates. I don't know who did that.
Yeah, who's the
Who we hate
PowerPoint
now?
version
Steve
of Bill
Jobs.
Gates? Right. But I really thought like 5 of my friends I went to art school with would be amused by this, because I basically like drew actual people, and I thought nobody else will get this. It's literally to crack up 3 friends, and then, of course, everybody said, like, this is exactly like it was in my art school.
Now,
I was horrified to find that out.
Was the film? Did that come from Terry, or were you guys like after Ghost World? Were you just like, what else you got?
It was actually, we came up with it before Ghost World. It was like before while Ghost World was being made. It was like, let's do that one. That was Terry. Yeah, Terry wanted to do it. That was his thing. Even though he never went to art school, had no connection to art school at all. He just thought he would intrinsically dislike art school. And
now, say that again, because I want to. Ghost World was the one that you had started at, and then you decided that you had art schools on the rails when you ended up doing Ghost World, or
Ghost World took, I think, 6 years before it. Like we wrote a script and then told all our friends and family it's going to be a movie.
Yeah.
And then 6 years later it was actually made.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we had a lot of downtime.
I know. The reason I say that is the Coen brothers wrote Barton Fink in the middle of either Miller's Crossing or Hudsucker Proxy. Like they were stuck. And they just said, oh, let's write a movie about a writer that's stuck.
Right.
And then they wrote Barton Fink, and then they sort of broke their writer's block and went back and finished the other movie. It's such a great story.
So this
You're still living
this
off
is
this
my
dough, right?
sellout phase. This was a
Slacker Cola.
This was an absurd product. For those who don't know, this was Coca-Cola.
This photo says to me, by the way, just the 90s.
Yeah, totally. Coca-Cola decided that, there was this whole like slacker generation who didn't like to be sold to, so they were going to create a product. Yeah, well, they were going to. How do we sell to them? They thought, well, we'll create a product and we'll just say like, this stuff isn't really very good. It's like you could buy it or not. We don't care. It's life is worthless. All this stuff, all the stuff I've been selling in my comics up till then. And so I told them, my comics don't sell very well. This is not going to be like this isn't going to be a big
Is
seller.
this at Coca-Cola?
This is actually an
is
ad
it like
agency.
an Emerald City here or something?
No, it was an ad agency that got carte blanche, and
Right.
I could not believe it kept going. It was one of those projects I was like, I can't stop working on this because I cannot believe it's still going.
Right.
Every day you think like, okay, that we're not going to do the cola that we're going to say is terrible. We're not going to actually do that. And
you know what else came of it? Well,
I was going to say, and so it cut to it actually is released and foisted on the public, and then it wound up losing so much money. It lost more money than any product in Coke's history, including New Coke. It was. So I like to think that my anti-corporate cred is totally solid because I lost.
Right.
How many out here have lost millions of dollars for a multinational corporation?
Was it Coke inside?
No, it was this orange thing. It was. I remember, like when we were doing, I said, "Well, what kind of soda is
Doesn't
it?"
matter.
Yeah, they said, "We're not sure. We tried a few," and I said, "Well, like what color is it?" We don't know yet. It's green or orange. But the funny little story about this is that they to draw this face, they sent me what's called to a professional illustrator, a mock-up. And so what they did was it's actually a drawing of my head from a story I did, like an autobiographical parody story I did. And then they took the face, so much for my little joke. try to remember what you were just
You know, it's
looking
funny.
at.
I just realized the slideshow is working just like the book. You get a little.
It's
bit,
right, it's a
over,
blackout.
and it's over.
Well, if you can recall what that can look like up there, the interior of the face is taken from another drawing I did, and it's the art director put it together. I just basically traced the drawing he sent me, and the amusing fact is that the facial features are from a drawing I did of Charles Manson, and
Really?
so that actually Coca-Cola put Charles Manson on a can.
Charles Manson was kind of a beautiful young boy when you look at it.
He was a
that way,
handsome guy.
He was a
Yeah.
fancy lad was how he
Yes,
referred to himself.
I believe so.
No, I think it's kind of, no.
Try it
we're-
again. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There we go.
We're all right. We're all
We're
right.
good. We're good.
The show Cougar Town came about not dissimilarly. It was a joke pitch in the writers' room of the show Scrubs. It was like, what is the most cynical fucking show we could think of,
Cougar
and then they made it. And
Cool.
yeah, that happens sometimes. We did that on the Ben Stiller show. We had a sketch called The Grungies, which was a parody of the Monkees.
Right.
But it was a grunge band.
Right, a 90s.
match. Right. And they were like, that's a show. I'm like, oh.
Please no.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And yet, they're selling to OK Cola. They're selling to cynical people.
Right.
Nothing is more cynical than that product. It's
Of
actually a
course,
perfect marriage,
which
yeah.
was the great
Right.
appeal. So now meanwhile, back in comics, here's Ghost World.
Who's that?
That's the gal from Ghost World.
Is that okay? Because yeah, no, I know.
No.
And I look to your lovely bride.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to embarrass her.
Okay. All right. Now this is this is a world of ghosts. Tell me about that. Your spooky cartoon.
Right at the same time. The movie Ghost World was in the theater. The John Carpenter Ghosts of Mars was also in the theater.
Two disaffected preteen girls.
A friend of my parents went to see that. And it was pretty good. Your son's movie's pretty good.
I will top that.
Wow.
When Mark David Chapman was arrested after shooting John Lennon, they said he was reading The Catcher in the Rye.
Right.
So my one brother of the several, the one that is as dumb as a bag of hammers, went and read Bob Euchre's The Catcher in the WRY. And could not figure out the connection. Bob Euchre, famous professional baseball
That's the greatest.
player. Yeah, fantastic. Read the whole thing. Oh, I don't get it.
Sure, the writing's bad, but kill somebody?
And Ghost World was just great. Men don't famously write well-developed women characters, and this is actually a genuine achievement.
Well, there you go. This
How do
is
you
the
do
one.
that?
This
How do
is
you
the
do
one with
that?
me.
Why are chicks crazy, Dan?
This is me making my little appearance in the story, which I felt like
You're Hitchcock.
I'm actually like drinking OK Cola. I sort of felt like as I was working on this, I thought like I've sort of implied that like I'm friends with these girls, like I'm eavesdropping on what they're saying, and like I thought like, well, I should like allow them to scrutinize me in the same way they would anybody else, and I finally realized this is what they would see. Mm-hmm. That was like me at every signing I ever did at a comic store till like 2 years ago.
And as you develop the movie, and as it moved, did you have any insecurity about sort of letting go of the narrative of the novel and letting it become its own thing, or did you?
I knew it had to be a very different thing. Like when I first started working on it, I thought, oh, this is the easiest money I'll ever make, and I just like typed up the lines from the script. Here you go.
Yeah.
It's 45 pages. That's not long enough, and
You seem to have a lot of drawings in the script.
Yeah, exactly. Wait a minute, that's just a comic. But over the course of 900 drafts, I finally realized like, oh yes, I've got to actually like just forget about the comic and turn it into a movie, and then it was sort of fun once I
that is the fun.
threw everything away.
That is the fun part of writing, when the
Yeah.
story actually takes over, and it's
Yeah.
no, it's over here.
When
Jack.
it was sort of like, it's like, oh, I get another chance to do like a different version. This could have been the version I did in the comic, but it wasn't. But
Right.
there's a million versions you can do.
Right. And do you see traces of like the, when do you envision that it's the character from Ghost World and Iron Man 2, or is Scarlet separate from that? I would like to think that she would have grown up to become a supervillain.
I think I think she was in the spirit, actually.
I haven't seen Iron Man 2.
Nor have I.
I don't go to movies whose trailers rape my face.
These are some behind-the-scenes photos of some creepy dude with these two.
Oh, she's not so tall.
The reason I have that B on my shirt was that at the time Scarlett was very upset that she was sort of the B-list actress of the film. She was like the second banana, and Thora was the big lead actress, Thora Birch, and so she convinced me that I was like the B. By being the writer, I was like the B-list, creative person on the film. So she made me wear this like scarlet letter B all day when I was a sadistic little girl. Whatever happened to her?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is one of the many great awards that we won for our screenplay. This is the Zachy Gordon Award for Screenwriting Excellence, given to Ghost Story. And Terry and I, we trade this off every year. And so when I put together this slideshow, I realized, Terry's got the Zachy Gordon Award. I need that for my slideshow. That's my proudest achievement. So I asked him to take a photo, and he took weeks and weeks to take this photo. And
really?
I just love how it's just completely caked with dust. I just love that about, and I love that it's on a doily too. I think that's everything. That says it all about Terry.
It just looks like just like a bad lamp.
It's a hurricane lamp, and it's like this tall.
Oh,
it's enormous.
Now, David Boring actually was I felt you'd sort of consciously moved into in a different. It's a much more external story than there's a lot. The events seem to be dictated more by. It's not as internal a story as Ghost.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost World was very.
That was my only attempt at a serious
character driven, and David Boring, I was sort of interested in following a plot, even like a crazy plot that you could never put in a movie. I wanted to do a comic that could never be in a movie, and I started doing it as a parody of a movie with like a 3-act structure. Mm-hmm. But it just goes, it's such a serpentine plot that it would be like a mini series instead of a movie.
Yeah, well, you had a funny quote. It was on the beach meets.
Yeah, I can't
Nabokov or something.
Yeah, it was like Finnegan's Wake meets Gilligan's Island or something.
Finnegan meets Gilligan.
There's a huge gulf in between those two, and it fits in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably everything ever done is between those two.
And yet, did you still get calls? That's a movie, Dan.
I did. You can actually, actors wanted to buy it, and you can just imagine what actors might think they look like David Boring, and you would be right. Right.
There he is.
There we go. This is another comic I did.
Yep. But this also, and now we're moving into, but this looks like the progenitor of Icehaven as well.
That was the comic version of Icehaven.
Right. And what was that was another, you get to this place where you start to do these, when you do these one-offs, they all have these unique framing devices. It's very admirable that you don't just keep pimping out your trick.
This I did. I started to do this as like an antidote to David Boring, because that was 4 years of like working in this really meticulous style, this kind of oppressive black and white style. And I thought, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of like funny gag strips. And I
walking away from the slide machine problem.
And as I was doing that, this story just kind of emerged out of nowhere, and it turned into something much more. It was actually much more complex than David Boring by the time it was done.
Yeah, because it's all these different.
I can't control myself. That's.
Did you find that once you started to get working in making money writing screenplays, that you can't
money? Wait,
well, you gotta talk to my wife.
I didn't.
But once you do start working in that medium, that it you can't help but have it inform the other stuff that you do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that engendered this was working in film and seeing how easy it was to change things. Like you could edit things and you can move everything all around and you can just do things I always thought you shoot a movie and you put it together in sequence in like 3 days and there you send it to the theater. And I didn't realize you spend months like reordering everything and how much you could change things. And you cannot do that in comics for the most part. You can't, if you want to move a panel from page 4.
Well, you shouldn't be able to do it in movies.
Well, yeah. But literally, it's spatially impossible in a comic to move a panel from one page to the next. You have to stick it in between panel. I mean, it's literally impossible. So you're kind of stuck with what you've got. So I kind of thought if I did these little short stories, 1 and 2 page stories, I could at least change the order of those stories and have some control over it. And that was very, that made it much less oppressive in a way to be able to do that.
Yeah, what I thought when I first started reading the Wilson, and I thought where it was going, and it would be interesting to do, is to tell the story of his life, but track it through different ages, like to tell flashback to a story.
The original idea was...
Just so we know, this is Spider-Man. You created that character of Spider-Man.
I was originally going to do Wilson's entire life, like from cradle to grave, and that just seemed a little gimmicky. So, and I thought I wanted to just cut everything out of the story that wasn't exactly, meaningful to me in some way. So it's
well, there's one really funny
padding at all.
There's one really funny thing. Spoiler
Just
alert!
one funny thing.
The thing that really made me laugh is suddenly he's in prison.
Right.
And you don't need to see it, which makes it so much funnier to me.
Yeah, and I obviously had 10 pages in between those two strips, and then I kept cutting and cutting and cutting, and then it was, okay, there we are.
It's always, I don't know how this came to be, but I always imagine when they were writing King Kong, they're like, how the fuck do we get this thing to New York? I got an idea. He's in New York. Hey, what do you know?
Yeah, that works. It works.
It worked great.
So this is actually a big, kind of self-important story I was working on. I spent like a year writing this my big Hollywood story, and I was really trying to do, the great American graphic novel, and I had it all kind of written out and plotted out, and I wound up drawing like 7 or 8 pages, and then one day I woke up and I just thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. To try to do like a great graphic novel is really like the dumbest thing you could ever do, and I just hated myself for even thinking that way. Even though I actually kind of like this, I reread it recently, it's actually pretty good, and I may do it someday, but just I felt so unclean doing that I abandoned it. So it's I haven't even looked at most of it.
That's your grade. That's your bottom drawer.
Yeah.
I feel unclean doing everything.
Yeah, and so I was, after I abandoned that, I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I got a call from the New York Times Magazine, and they asked me to do this weekly strip. So I did. I was like on the phone with the editor, and I thought, what do I do for that? And she said, you could just do anything. You could do you could do like a romance story. And I thought, what would I do for a romance story? What would my romance be? And then I tried to think, this is for readers of the New York Times Magazine. So I tried to imagine the quintessential reader of the New York Times Magazine, just this schlubby, 46-year-old lonely schmuck whose fantasy is basically to meet a girl he can read the New York Times Magazine with. And,
everybody, that guy, this person, the name I'm going to reference is not that person, but those people all look like Robert Smigel. Okay. But Robert has a lovely wife and beautiful children.
Okay. So anyway, that was my impetus for this, was a romance with the schlubby New York Times reader guy, and anyway, and I did it.
Fantastic. I'm going to keep going even though this is not
Let's just pretend they can see the slides. Envision, if you will.
Wow. So I guess that's Scarlett in her trailer.
Oh my! Oh, did that get in there? Jesus. These are New Yorker covers.
I actually thought the guy on the right in the spacesuit looks so much like a producer I know. I thought it was him. And he's
Stuart Kornfeld?
No, it's not. It was, no, I like Stuart's a friend.
Oh.
They said no. The producer I was like was the only man in my life I've yelled at.
Wow.
I'm
wow.
one person in my life.
Nice.
Yeah. A guy named Bob Cooper.
When I said when I was a kid I wanted to work for Mad Magazine, but my dad wanted me to work for the New Yorker. So those were for him. Although I got my first New Yorker cover when my dad was in the hospital, and it literally came out 2 days after he died. It was pretty unbelievable.
Well, God's a cock.
Thanks, David Remnick. So this is one
Thanks,
of the.
Killy McGee.
This is one of the little strip. This is not my new style. This is.
This is your back to basics.
Yes, exactly. My caveman style. This is one of the little strips I drew sitting in the hospital. So they kind of all looked like this. Actually, this is one of the most accomplished looking ones.
That's a grim time. Is your mom still around?
My mom is with us, yes. I have her ashes in my bag.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. My dad, my mom had some sort of medicinal reaction. My dad came home the other day and found my mom on the floor with some pliers pulling the worms out of the carpet.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious.
Wow, yeah, you couldn't make that up.
It's like, and I thought, they took her to the hospital, and I thought it'd be great if I had to fly back and come, and the house was actually full of fucking worms. Like,
yeah,
you
right.
idiots!
She was right.
Put her back on her heart medication. No, and she did that great. This wonderful thing about parents. She has she's the perfect American. She takes 7,000 drugs.
Right.
And they say, well, the doctor told me to stop taking my blood pressure medication for a week. And then the greatest words that come after that, which I knew were coming. So what I did instead, let's leave it at that. Yeah. The doctor told me to get over my pneumonia, I should just stay in bed and relax. So instead, I put on a witch's hat and ran around the post office. Great, Mom. It's amazing you don't get better.
So on that note, this is my dad in the hospital. End of slide.
Hilarious!
Here we are, yeah.
And here we are, and now you've worked all the way up to...
This is the first page of the book. I love
Right.
people. I'm a people person. It all goes downhill from there.
I love that last panel of and when I turned the page and saw that was it, but it was the
At
same
the
page.
end.
But no, it's great that when you turn instantly what you're in for.
Right.
Like it's so
Right.
great. It's so great. And as I was saying, and it is one of those great books that, even though you want to read it chronologically, I was my wife was reading something, I was reading something else. I said, "No, just read this one. Just read this one. It's really."
Yeah, my goal was to do. I always figure when you take a book off the shelf, you open it to the middle. Nobody ever starts at page 1. They just say open to the middle, look to see what it looks like. And so I thought, I wanted a book where people would open it to the middle and go, oh, it's funny little comics. I'll read the, and kind of get sucked into it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really.
So we'll see if that works.
It's incredibly. It's a great device. It's one of your best pieces.
Well, thank you.
Really. Not your best. But no, because I pestered you for as much of the art. Immortal Invisible, I just love so much.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's also that sort of. They're not totally different. He's also a painfully lonely kid.
Right.
Trying to
he could have grown up to be Wilson for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the thing that I'm obsessed by that year where you're too old to go trick-or-treating,
Yeah.
but too young to do anything cool.
Right.
And you're just kind of stuck.
I had a couple of years like that, actually.
Yeah. I actually had one that we're doing, in 1977,
Yeah.
I was arrested for shoplifting in the afternoon, stealing soap. By the way. Duh. It's like stealing a gun the day before the president comes.
Right.
And there was I lived in a small town, so they just called my mother. My mother I didn't get in trouble, because who taught me to shoplift? My mother.
Oh, man.
'Cause she was crazy. And we used to steal groceries and deduct the money from the grocery list, and she would send it to Oral Roberts.
Wow.
And I ended the night egging cars with the Catholic priest.
There you are.
Didn't even make a move.
Quite a day.
Yeah, it was
Didn't
quite
even
a day.
make a move.
Didn't even make a move.
You were a homely child.
I asked him later, like, what was the deal? He's like, I don't know. I just wasn't Indian. Like, well, I'd have done something. Spruced up. And here we are, and now we're in
the airport. Yeah.
in high dudgeon of
Yes,
the Wilson.
this is quintessential Wilson.
Yeah, it's and it does, and it also. Now this is his daughter,
Right.
which I also love. It's such an incredibly. You're almost waiting for the super hot chick, like
Right.
because that would be the funny.
Right.
Contrary,
Right.
but this is exactly who it would be.
Yeah.
It's so well
The
observed.
goth girl, yeah.
Yeah, so well observed.
So this book was sort of like my role model for Wilson. Like I just wanted it to have that kind of presence, where I remember my dad had this book when I was a kid, and I didn't even really look at it. It was sort of like over my head, but it's like, you see it, and it's like, it's about Big George, and there he is, and you're going to open this book, and it's going to be all about Big George. And it's a book, it just had this imposing, like, it's a book about, and you're going to close it, and Big George is done, and you can put him on the shelf.
What was Big?
Big George was like a gag strip by this great artist, Virgil Parch, who went as Vip. And
Were they body?
No, he does sort of look like a body fellow, but he was actually kind of just a schlubby, kind of nondescript guy.
Oh.
But
It looks like he might cross paths with the Femlin at some point.
Yeah, he does, but no. Yeah. But anyway, I like just the bookness of that image, and when I called the publisher, I said, I want the thickest boards, I want like the thickest paper, like I want a book that can take a bullet. I want like my readers to be protected with this book, and
but people
I'm going to go down with the sinking ship that is book publishing with a solid book.
That's the
Like I don't
thing.
want some stupid little book.
You know why they put Big Macs in a box?
Right.
When they don't need to.
Right.
People like things in a box.
There you go. So this is like better than a box.
Absolutely true.
And there he is.
There he is.
The end.
The distance of early park. Fantastic.
So we could answer questions.
Let's
Can I tell them what you're doing tonight?
if you want to, yeah.
Dana has to leave in 15 minutes because he has to fly to China to pick up a baby. And that's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
That's pretty cool, I think. That's a good excuse.
It's
anyway.
a good excuse.
If I don't see a baby next time I see you, I'm like, wait a minute, you just want to get out.
Yeah, my wife is going to be so freaked out when I come home with this fucking thing.
Right.
It's an odd situation. We have two other children from China, and we
You
thought
don't need to justify yourself.
yeah,
It's fine.
we thought to triangulate would be good.
Right. That's right.
When we
Pit two of them against each other.
yeah, as I said, when we told my mom originally that we were adopting a baby from China, she asked,
I don't even want to know.
"Are you going to teach her English?" But that's a great thing. As they get older, sometimes why don't you just keep talking, and I'm going to think about the person you used to be when I was younger, and weep softly into this napkin.
Into this pillow.
But let's get some questions.
So any
going.
questions? Yeah.
Right in the front.
Right there. I can actually see you.
Have you ever considered putting your cartoons into animation?
Have you ever considered?
No, you probably should repeat that because
He did ask
nobody
if-
back there heard that.
I was just kidding. Have you ever considered putting your cartoons in animation? I know Matt Groening, and he has
Matt
a
Groening
lot of.
he's made
He
a
actually
few
has a
dollars.
deal now. He just eats dead leaves and shits money. It's a fantastic deal.
Yeah, I did an animated video for the Ramones years ago, like in 1995. It was like their last video, I believe. And I literally got the phone call on like June 1st, 1995, and they said, we need this this is going to be on the air June 30th. It was like the first I'd heard of it. Yes, sir,
Yeah.
And so it was not, it was not my most developed work, but it was a lot of fun doing that. And I don't know, there's something about animation that really bugged me for a long, long time. And a couple of years ago, there was this film called Fears of the Dark, and it was this French film, and they got Charles Burns and a couple other artists to do to do animated films, and they got this guy named Richard McGuire, who's this great artist, to like just direct and do his own little segment of it. And I thought it was so blew me away. I thought it was like so. It was on the level of Hitchcock. Like it's just the most fantastically done thing. And when I saw that, I thought like, oh, maybe animation could be okay.
Is it all animated? Or?
Yeah, it's all animated, and it's
Fear of the dark?
Fears of the Dark. And anyway, so that's something I would like to do if somebody will throw money at me someday.
Interesting. Fears of the Dark.
Fears of the Dark.
It's kind of like your ghost story movie.
Yes.
You know those Richard Linklater sort of quasi-animated films?
Right.
That's also face rape to me, I think. Stop it! Leave me alone. Like movies that poke you in the head. Somebody
You're a sensitive fellow.
Yeah. I just sit there with a damp cloth. Anyone else? There's a hand over
there.
there.
There's a guy.
Yeah, let's see, I don't know if this question invites some kind of negative response, but I remember reading
I like your setup.
I mean, there's kind of, there
You'll probably call me technically a Nazi for this. What is it? Go ahead.
in a comics journal interview,
Oh, boy.
a reference to your brother as the
My poor brother.
in the best testing. Was it not? Okay, in the Illinois penitentiary, was that?
Oh, he was, yeah. Yeah, he had the highest IQ in the history of the California penal system. He really did, I'm serious.
Your brother?
Yeah.
Was he incarcerated?
He was, yeah.
And I'm wondering what has become of him. It just seemed,
He actually lives in Chicago and rehabs houses for a living, and he's an all right guy.
Can you say what he was in for, or would you rather not?
It was a drug-related
Ah,
charge.
my brother is a prison guard.
They might know each other.
I might. Yeah, I don't know what he said to his job counselor. I don't like anal rape per se. I like the idea of it. I can see it as a part of my job.
Theoretically, it's
I'd like to maybe referee, or I like it to be a part of my work environment. I just don't want to specifically be involved. It will stun you to know that I've said that in shows. Yes. The guy that looks like the first series of fuzzy-haired G.I. Joes.
you did the death ray.
I actually wrote that Death Ray story when I was about 15 years old after reading Spider-Man. It's just my version of that. And I just really related to the Spider-Man character because I lived with my grandparents and I was a resentful, skinny twerp who wished I had been bitten by a spider, And so when I don't know, a few years ago when I was trying to think, what should I do for my next comic? And I thought, what would be the stupidest thing you could do? And I thought, oh yeah, like a real-life superhero. That would be that's the dumbest thing you could do. And I'm going to do it. And so I actually because that story, because I wrote it when I was 15, it had this really intense emotional impact on me as things you write when you're 15 will do. And of course I completely rewrote it, but the character looked the same and it had sort of some of the basic plot elements.
Now that was optioned, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't that movie star Jack Black want to make that?
He still might.
Mm-hmm. I believe Ben Cooley is here. He might have a check for you.
He's going to bring out a giant check.
Foam core check.
Here you are, $10.
I like to put that in the contract. All my checks will be oversized foam core checks.
Foam core check. Yes.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Oakland, since I'm from there as well, and I think I'm talking to you a few times out there. But,
It's that guy.
wonderful, and then also it seems like Oakland's kind of seeping a little bit into your work. I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah.
Secondly, are you done with comic books now?
I'm not done with comics at all. I'm done with maybe doing it in comic book, saddle-stitched pamphlet form, just because that feels like it's old news. But as far as Oakland, yeah, Wilson is very much a guy from Oakland, and he lives 2 blocks from my house, and anybody who wants me to take them around Oakland, I could do a walking tour of Wilson's Wilson's haunts, and then that story Mr. Wonderful is actually on the other street near my house that I hang out at. So It'd be very easy to figure out where I live if you wanted to do Oakland research. Ixnay.
Tell us about the awesome amusement park in Oakland.
Children's Fairyland in Oakland, which was supposedly the basis, the thing that gave Walt Disney the idea for Disneyland. And it's like the Oakland version of Disneyland in that it is extremely run down and sad, and it will like inspire tears more than laughter. But
Yeah.
But I love it. I'd much rather go there than Disneyland.
Yeah,
I mean, it's much more.
It's
I like to be moved to sobbing as I'm watching my son, sadly go around a rusty merry-go-round.
It's really like the amusement park Jack Klugman went to in Twilight Zone when Billy Mummy was killed in Vietnam.
Right.
Pepe's over there, he's just a boy. Stop overacting.
Everybody knows that reference.
But
my readers are young people.
Yeah. That's why my life is all chicks.
Right.
But Oakland does. It's funny how like your environment so informs your work. Like Chicago was so heavily influenced in like the early Eightballs. It's so Chicago is.
Yeah, it was all in the
trenchant.
early Eightballs. It was completely Chicago, and then when I was doing Ghost World, I moved to California, but I still had like the Chicago in my head. So it's like palm trees and beaches in California mixed with Chicago. So everybody go, oh, that story's set in suburbia. You really captured suburbia, and it's like, no, it's just this weird mixture of like urban horror, decay, and California nonsense.
Yeah, but
that
is
somehow equals suburbia.
But that is true. I mean, but that is also real. And like Tim Burton has that. Like to him, the blight of Burbank was so palpable that it moved him to make the same movie 20 times.
Right. He'll get it right one of these days.
Yes, young man in the back, Tom.
Has anyone talked to you about doing Velvet Glove Cast in Iron as a film?
A lot of people have talked to me about it. Nobody with any money has ever talked to me about it. It's always like the student film, like I want to make this as my student film. Or
That's funny because I know the person that controls the money.
wait a minute.
That could help him.
I need somebody who looks like Tina, like some actress who looks like a potato. This is for me.
Yeah, I think you could do that.
Could find that. I always think Velvet Glove will be like the most popular movie of 2040. Like our culture will have like gotten so extreme that will just be like a PG film, and long after I'm dead,
But I think it could. In the right hands, I think it could be a movie because the visuals are already established in the way that I don't think that Geek Love could be.
Yeah.
I think it could be a horrible movie, Geek Love.
Oh, yeah.
But
that would be a good pitch for it.
yeah, the Arturo the Aquaboy tie-in at Burger King you would have. But I think that because that it is funny because whereas books tell stories of an interior story, a story of intention. Movies just can show action. And it's really a graphic novel is the midpoint between those two.
Yeah.
That is sort of its niche.
It would be. I'd like to make it as a movie, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, often a wise choice.
Right. This little guy.
When you write a graphic novel, do you ever write a script, or do you just write little sketches? What's your process for that?
He's asking my process for writing a comic. I actually don't have a set process, and it's not because like I want to switch around all the time. I'm trying to find like the right way to do it. I know there's like a way out there that's going to be like bingo, I've got it. This is my system from now on, and it works every time. And then I'll do one book, and then the next one I'm going to write up the whole script in advance, and then the next one I don't want to write the whole script in advance. I'll just draw it panel by panel without any idea of what's going on, and I just veer all around wildly, and they all come out basically the same. So it doesn't seem to matter.
It is that thing that you always end up doing. Like if when you write a screenplay, you have X amount of time, it's always like the last 4 days, like fuck.
Right.
Fuck.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. Let's take a couple more and then.
And then you got to go get a baby.
I literally have to go to the airport. I apologize. Unless we're full up.
All right.
It's teeming with people, and yet we seem to have answered every question. There's
Weirdly.
one. Last question.
There we go. Better be good.
You seem to have a heavy strength of surrealism. You and Chester Brown, who I both admire your visual
Thank you.
styles, and I think they're very innovative. But I wonder if you have any, outside of comics, do you have any influences from surrealism?
From surrealism? I don't know.
You don't have to answer that. This event is over.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do that. This hearing is finished.
You take your shoe and pound it on the table. I actually don't have a good answer. I like the surrealist, and I like, Buñuel films and stuff, but I can't say I was deeply influenced by any of that stuff, except just by osmosis, kind of, knowing about it. And
are you a Dennis Potter fan?
I wasn't until a couple of years ago. I actually never sat through any of those until 4 or 5 years ago, and then I watched them all at once.
The BBC singing detective.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Robert Downey Jr. one? So
I always meant
fixes
to.
the
I'd
BBC one.
love to see it just for that.
It's great. It's
for
as
the wrong
awesome
reasons.
as Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
There you go.
Hey, not everybody could make that story boring. My kid would make it interesting by accident.
Right.
What's that? Talking gorilla on a horse with a sword? Cool. So, what is the? Are you? Is there a signing? You can do?
I believe I'm going to sign some books.
Okay, and it's available here. Thank you all for coming. Dan Clowes, ladies and gentlemen.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books Author Reading Series. Don't forget that you can check out this and all of our great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Today's music was provided by Ashling and Arlo. You can check them out at MySpace or Facebook or at the iTunes Music Store. Thank you for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.